Dr. Reyes, thank you for joining me here today.
Hey, Eric, thanks for having me.
It's good, like we were just saying before, it's good to connect with you, but it's interesting that it's happening while you're living abroad rather than us living in the same state.
I know, it's so cool that we're both from Minnesota, or that you're in Minnesota right now. But yeah, our family moved last fall of 2025 to England, so we are getting closer to the 1 year mark. We're in Birmingham, England, which is a couple hours north of London, and we're loving it here.
Nice. I'm curious, we're going to be talking about cross cultural intelligence, cross cultural interaction, things like that today. I'm curious what it's like to be living abroad with that being sort of your vocational background and focus.
Yeah, oh man, so many thoughts come to mind. But what I think something that is really interesting is just an identity shift that both my husband and I have experienced in moving here to England. As I write in my book and Becoming All Things, most of my life I've always been seen as an ethnic minority, as an Indian American woman. In America, there is this very strong racial interpretive lens that we live under, almost like a microscope, if you will, and people can be very obsessed with categorizing you, and trying to figure you out even before they get to know you. And so I was always like the brown girl or the brown skinned Indian in America, and all the assumptions and stereotypes that come with that. But here, and particularly in Birmingham, where we live, where there's a really high South Asian population, it's the first time in my life where I've kind of fit into the crowd, and people don't look at me like I'm different or have those questions of like, where are you from? Or are you from India? Or do you like naan? Like, I'm not getting the same kind of interactions that I would in America. And in fact, people generally just see us as the Americans, which has a whole different sort of connotation with it. And so I will say I've actually come to enjoy it because there's a new level of anonymity, and maybe even just like the pressure is off to be more of myself without anyone trying to categorize us. So there's a lot of freedom, and especially in this big wave of more and more Americans wanting to move abroad. Um, Obviously not for everyone, but we have just really enjoyed the freedom of being more of ourselves here in England than I think my husband and I have ever felt while living in the States.
That's so interesting. For the listener, I'll break in here and say we'll get to some more foundational things, but I want to kind of chase this rabbit trail, if you will,
Yeah.
because I don't know enough about England or their culture or history to speak super intelligently on it. But it seems like they are more connected to what they would describe as the Commonwealth, like
Yeah.
all of the parts that used to be part of the British Empire, the colonial connections, if you will. And India,
Yeah.
I guess, is one of those places, along with around the world. It seems like they are
Yes.
more connected in that way than Americans are to anywhere outside of the United States. Well, I guess particularly white Americans. I guess it would depend on where you have immigrated from and sort of that how you view your history personally. Is that something
Yes.
you're noticing? Like, how does that play into what you're seeing in terms of cultural intelligence understanding in England?
Yeah. Well, there's the tension. There's two sides of the coin, right? On the one hand, I think there's just a more understanding of what it means to live in a globalized society in England. Like you're saying, because of England being part of the Commonwealth, of having colonial roots all over the world, but also just the diversity of people that now find themselves living in England. Even my mom's own family, her story is that she was born in the diaspora, born and raised in Uganda, England, when President Idi Amin came to power and waged a genocide against the minorities, including Indians in Uganda. My mom's whole family fled with literally nothing but the clothes on their back. My mom went to India for college, and the rest of her family moved here to England. And that's true for a lot of Indians, a lot of reasons why they came back to England, if you will. But there's also like a high Caribbean population, which a lot of Black Caribbeans came to England post World War II, as well as just people from around the world. So there is a big immigrant, big globalized demographic. But I think in their own way, England is asking similar questions of like, what does it mean to culturally adapt and what does it mean to preserve culture, right? Like, unlike America, where we're celebrating 250 years, right? England has existed for thousands of years with a very distinct like culture. So what does it mean for a small island that's existed for thousands of years with a very specific culture to preserve its culture as it globalizes and diversifies? So it's, similar but different conversations happening over here too.
I wonder then how you see that playing out between what you're seeing in England and what you have experienced in the United States. How was the
Yeah.
way I was framing this as you were talking? It seems like, I guess maybe the question is, do you feel like the British people sort of generally are asking questions about culture in a way that Americans aren't? Like, does it feel like they are more interested in trying to connect across cultures in their society, or
Good
I'm using big
question.
words because I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with British
Yes.
culture, but
You know,
do you see
I
any
would
sort of differences there?
well, what I would say just briefly is there's a running joke that like British people just apologize for everything. And that's different from Scottish culture or Irish culture or even Welsh culture. Like Brits are incredibly apologetic about everything, So we had friends over for dinner the other day and they were like, "Oh, can you pass the salt? I'm so sorry." Or, "Can I have another glass of water? I'm so sorry." And we were like, "Why are you apologizing just for like existing?" And that same kind of apologetic posture does cross over into English history and colonization and the Commonwealth. Like everything is just constantly like, "We're so sorry. We're like, we feel awful. Like we just constantly feel guilty for our past and for what we did and for how we treated other people's." So I think that's different, right? In terms of, on the one hand, with people in the UK, I think people in Europe in general, there is like strong national pride. Like they're very proud to be English, proud of their football culture, proud of like pub culture, English food, whether it's sausages and potatoes or what, like they're very proud of parts of their English culture and they're also very apologetic for their past. And I do think that there are some of that posture that Americans could also learn from of like how do we be proud of being American and like the good parts of American culture and history, while also being apologetic for the things that America has done and not confuse or conflate being apologetic for problematic aspects of our past with being anti-American or hating America. I think sometimes Americans get tripped up and just mix all of that together.
Yeah, that's a good note. It also, as we're talking about this, it's probably worth noting that that's probably not the experience of everyone in England. Just
Yeah.
thinking back to a period where, with Brexit, like of exiting the European Union and those connections, like there's obviously some portion of British society that does not feel that way. That feels like maybe that national pride becomes more nationalism, and
Yeah.
we are us, and we need to be separate from others who are not us.
Oh, for sure. I mean, England, like English people are very, very clear that they're not Europe. They're they're the UK and Europe is the continent and they do not like being called Europeans. So there's like just that kind of identity part. I will say it was interesting when we moved here last fall. We were so confused as we rented our car and were driving from the airport to our Airbnb that we were initially staying at, that it seemed like all the streets of Birmingham were just lined with flags, the Union Jack flag and then like all the like the England flag and whatnot. And there has been a big backlash recently of anti-illegal immigration in England. And so obviously that conversation is happening here as well, and trying to figure out how, where are we supposed to stand when it comes to immigrants, welcoming immigrants, what's the stance on illegal immigration, um, people crossing borders illegally, things like that. And for the churches and pastors that we're connected with here, that's a big conversation is how do we pastor our churches and our local people through that conversation. So yeah, they're not immune to that by any means.
Yeah.